Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, December 6th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the NFL game picks for this week. In this segment, we turn our attention to college football. We have 9 conference championship games to go over, a couple of them already taking place. We're going to do predictions and previews for all 9 of them. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, December 6th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the college football game picks here. 9 conference championship games to go over. And we're going to start with the ones that have already kicked off. In the CUSA, we have a rematch from last week with Western Kentucky taking on Jacksonville State. This is probably the game with the least amount of stakes, at least for the rest of the season as we get down to it. But this still should be a fun one. Western Kentucky gets a walk-off win last week when they took down Jacksonville State. This one, I expect to go a different way. Jacksonville State is favored by 4 heading into this matchup. I don't really know. I don't really know how it's going right now, but I think Jacksonville State learns from last week. We saw Western Kentucky find something defensively. This is just one of those games I think is going to have an opposite feel from last week, and I think Jacksonville State escapes with a victory. They win 30-27. Couple more games today, Friday night, that have a lot of huge precedent on college football in the playoffs, starting with Tulane taking on Army. Army is ranked at number 24 right now. Darian Mensah leads Tulane. He is a quarterback that I have fallen in love with. I love watching this kid play. He is a gunslinger out there. It's been working basically all season. Couple of bad breaks last week against Memphis that let them fall out of contention for the playoffs, but this still is the second best Group of 5 championship game. Both of these teams have a lot to play for. They're going to get into a solid bowl game, both of them. Army, of course, after this takes on Navy in the Army-Navy game, but Tulane favored by 5 in this one. I think they should absolutely destroy Army in this. We saw the last time Army went up against a really great team in Notre Dame, they got absolutely destroyed, and I don't think it's going to be quite to that level. But Tulane, I think, is up there with some of those top teams, and I think they legitimately had an argument for making the college football playoffs over one of those, either ACC if Clemson had gotten in, or potentially a Big 12 if a team like Iowa State will get in this one. Fortunately, doesn't matter at this point, but I think Tulane takes this one big time, winning 37-23. And the final game from today. This is arguably the most important game for college football playoff stakes, at least in the Group of 5, as number 20 UNLV travels to number 10 Boise State. Whoever wins this game will be in the college football playoffs. You have a huge opportunity for UNLV to avenge a loss that they took earlier in this season, losing 29-23 in that one. Boise State with Ashton Genty, and I'm sure this isn't going to be their goal because this is not going to be an easy game, going up against the best run defense in the entire conference in UNLV, giving up just over 100 yards a game. Ashton Genty, Heisman candidate, definitely in the top 2, probably sitting at number 2 right now. He needs just 341 yards to break the all-time rushing record set by Barry Sanders. And I know that's a lot of yards, but when we're talking about Ashton Genty here, a guy that has yet to rush for under 120 yards this season. He is averaging somewhere around 170 yards this season. He is a monster, a beast on the field, and I would not be shocked if he finds a way to do that. But again, going up against a really good UNLV squad, their run defense is solid, and I think UNLV will find a way to pull off the upset here. This is the game of the night tonight. UNLV 20 versus 10. I love the way that their offense and their mindset has changed since bringing in Haj Malik Williams at quarterback. Obviously, the whole Matthew Sluka saga had its end. He ended up leaving the team. I'm taking UNLV to win this one in an upset here, winning 27-24. Getting into Sunday's game, we're going to finish up with the group of five before getting into the Power 5 games. The MAC, obviously, they eat each other alive. MACtion is always a fun time. Ohio taking on Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio won their previous matchup about mid-season point, 20-30. I don't think this game is going to go much different. These are both teams that are at the top of the conference, but I do think Miami of Ohio pretty clearly was the best MAC team this year. I think they win pretty handily, 34-21. The final group of five conference championship game, though, is in the Sun Belt. Well, we'll see the Marshall Thundering Herd taking on Louisiana. Marshall and Louisiana, both of them, were not really expected to get this far in the season. They were not picked as favorites in either one of the East or West, but they both go out there. Louisiana hosts the game, is favored by 5 in this one, and Louisiana, the way they've been playing football, Marshall's been a team that you can beat. Marshall almost loses last week to James Madison. They come back, a huge comeback effort, down 17, win in double overtime there. Very impressive, some gutsy calls over there, but I think Louisiana is just the best team in the Sun Belt by a pretty heavy margin right now. Marshall is a good team this year, but Louisiana has just played more consistent and better football, and I think they escape with a victory at home, winning 24-33. But getting into the Power 4 conferences now, starting off with the one that I think is going to matter the least for seeding in the college football playoff game, and that is Penn State, the number 3 team in the nation, traveling to Oregon to take on the number 1 team in the nation in those Oregon Ducks. Oregon favored by 3.5 in this one. And Penn State has that label of not really being able to play in these big games. It's something that can change, and this is their opportunity to prove it. This is their first matchup versus Oregon since they've joined the Big Ten. Of course, they joined this year. This is a massive opportunity for them to earn a bye and potentially their name on the 1 seed line, which would be insane for a Penn State team that thought they weren't even going to get here after losing to Ohio State. They find a way in after that loss from Michigan to Ohio State. Penn State has a real chance here, and I think they're going to show up. I think it's going to be a little bit of a low-scoring effort for them because that Oregon defense is really good. The question is how is that Oregon offense going to show? Because they were a little bit shaky against a good Big Ten opponent down the stretch in Wisconsin. I'm taking Oregon to win this game, keep their undefeated season alive, and get that number 1 seed. They win 31-17. Heading into the SEC next, another one that probably won't make much of a difference. Both of these teams, Georgia and Texas, should make it to the college football playoffs. The only question is, will they make it as a host team or not? Texas, the number 2 team in the nation, their only loss is to this Georgia team. This is going to be a fun matchup. Obviously, both of these teams didn't play their best football last time they were out there. Georgia just absolutely destroyed them. They could not get anything done. Pressure on the quarterback all day long by the Georgia Bulldogs. And they still were able to win despite Brock Bowers throwing 3 interceptions in that game. I don't know if this is going to be the same as it went last time, but I can't imagine that Texas figured out a way to avoid all that pressure from the Georgia Bulldogs defense, and I don't think that Brock Bowers, who's been playing really good as of late, will make all of those same mistakes against Texas like he did last time. I think Georgia finds a way to win, not quite as dominant, but I do think they win 29-22. The Big 12 game is probably the most interesting one in my mind, as number 16 Iowa State travels to Arizona, or takes on Arizona State, the number 15 team in the nation. Spread is the closest at 1.5 right now. Arizona State, I think, is playing like the best team in the Big 12 right now. I love Iowa State. Their defensive mentality is super fun to watch. But the offensive firepower coming out of Arizona State is almost unmatched right now in the Big 12, and I think they match up pretty good with Iowa State. I think Arizona State wins this game in a high-scoring matchup, 34-28, and clinch a spot in the college football playoff. And finally, in the ACC, the one that has the most college football implications, the number 17 Clemson Tigers take on number 8 SMU. SMU is favored in this one, and I think they should dominate. The way that they've been playing, their offense has been the second best in the ACC, maybe third best behind Syracuse and Miami, but the defense has really stepped up as of late, and that's the most important thing. Clemson has not been consistent against any great opponents, any good opponents, to be completely honest with you. They got absolutely boat raced by Georgia. They lost by a pretty good margin to Louisville. SMU beat this Louisville team, and I think that says everything you're going to need to know about this one. Clemson is probably going to come out flat in this, but if they do find a way to win, that will be the chaos scenario. I think SMU wins handily, though, pretty easily, honestly, 37-20. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of these game picks. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the NFL playoff picture. We talked a little bit about it throughout our segments. We're going to talk about where it stands right now, teams in the hunt, who I think is going to get there as we head to the final quadrant of the year in the NFL. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.